Awesome. So essentially, this whole session is very much Q&A. Ask me anything, and I'm going to can run through some of the slides and jog your memories on a few things if you like as well. And you can ask me about some of the AI stuff we also covered in our session. And so Will, we just had a bit of a chat. We got Rusty, Queensland. We've got Ben in Queensland. Whereabouts yourself, Will?
We're in Queensland as well.
Amazing. We've got a full Queensland suite here. So you're the most motivated agents in the group. And with you made some time for this. So Will, let's start with yourself. Tell us about your agency and what your key direction that you want to take with technology.
We're only a small boutique agency here. I work with my wife, she's the principal, and we've got a database which she brought with her from a previous role that she was in. We've been building on that now for 3 years. There's just a lot of, I suppose, dead wood in there that I'd like to clean out. So I'm on here to try and get some ideas on how best I can do that. That's really
what system are you using?
Vault.
Vault, good stuff. Awesome. How long have you had Vault for?
2.5 years.
Okay. And did you migrate from another system?
I've not been involved in the real estate industry prior to that particular point in time. My wife had. Not sure what database she was on, but it wasn't Vault.
Okay, cool. And Rusty, what's your story? Just so I can spread some even intel.
I was really kind of impressed by by this session that I attended last time, and then about using AI, and then some advice about other stuff. We use Agentbox CRM.
Yep.
And also we use HubSpot as well.
Really?
In fact, we would like to have this marketing automation feature to see it in the CRM actually, but obviously
not there.
And then at least maybe to have integration between them, because all the leads we generate through the paid media and everything goes into HubSpot. And then an interesting thing is the ActivePipe, for example, for email marketing is integrated with HubSpot, but to my knowledge, it's not integrated with Agentbox at the moment, which is
I'll tell you a little secret.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually fully integrate Agentbox.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
No one knows about it, but the people like me know that's possible. So that's pretty cool. So I can elaborate on that later.
I'll message you then just to ask you some stuff. I think it would be great. Yeah.
For everyone's knowledge, does everyone know about HubSpot? Ben, do you know about HubSpot? Cool. So HubSpot, it's a non-real estate program. It's a non-industry specific, but HubSpot is actually the #1 platform for email and audience marketing, right? So it's not cheap, is it, Rusty? They certainly charge quite a lot. So for example, if you had like 50,000 contacts, they charge per contact. So that'd be like almost $3,000 a month. Like it's pretty full on. But what it does is it grabs intel from all the behavior on your website. It basically builds a really rich profile based on behavior, and it does automatic scoring, okay, of all your contacts based on website and so for all these things that Josh was talking about. HubSpot is one of those platforms. All right. So just stay tuned. I think in the future, what we'll see in real estate is the creation of something the equivalent of HubSpot for real estate.
Is ActivePipe filling that need at the moment? Is it like, because they come up with, they're highly engaged or whatever. Like I don't use ActivePipe, but I have in the past briefly. Have they got something similar, Tristan? Or
so ActivePipe is only doing email marketing, and depends on the CRM. It has different various amount of sharing of data between the two systems, right? So it's reasonably integrated, you might call it. Would you agree with that, Chris?
To a certain extent, it's a bit more of a reactive product, in my opinion. Like it, it's got that marketing automation, but it's only as active as someone is on clicking and looking at stuff. And if you've got, for example, an owner, you might have met them as a buyer. They've gone and bought something, and now they own the property, and they're not that active, maybe for a period of a few years while they're settling into that home. They're not going to be as actively looking on kind of the listings, and therefore it sends them everything to start with, and then relies on them clicking on stuff to narrow down and get a more accurate profile. And if you've got an owner that's a bit inactive because they've purchased, they can almost go a bit cold because it doesn't kind of have enough activity to engage to know what to send them.
So what that relates to is, how do we communicate? What's the customer journey per segment, right? Which is what I think we'll definitely talk about that. That's great. That relates to that. So bring it back to ActivePipe. ActivePipe's a very good automation email solution that plugs into all the CRMs you guys have. But in relation to HubSpot is like got all that functionality, but it's far more sophisticated, and it also can build audiences on Facebook, on Insta. It looks at all behavior of a person across all channels and brings it up into one place. Okay, so that's one thing that is a dream of mine. Okay, and one thing I'd like to have something involvement in building. How can we have a single customer view, right? So we've got a profile of a person, and we can see all the behavior and open for inspections, online inquiries. We've got website behavior as well, and also email clicks and behavior. So we've got all this feeding into one place. And what's really cool, just coming up, is that certain platforms like Domain and also REA, for certain people, they're going to be sharing the behavior of people on those platforms as well. And that has a huge amount of traffic. So you sort of see, if we bring all that together, it just means we're working so much smarter, doesn't it?
So you pretty much want to be the FBI of real estate, is what you're saying.
That's where we're headed. And how AI relates to that is basically adding more color to that profile of a person without having to spend so much effort. And essentially everything relates to, and Ben knows this extremely well, just pick up the phone, right person, right time. And that's the work that I did with Ben previously with Rita, really drilling down into the most likely people that would want to speak to us. So Ben, imagine if, yes, we could drill down at the moment around, build a list of like the top 200 people in the database for an agent that lives on the same street as a listing on the market. That's as far as we go right now, really. It's like an assumption. But what if we had another layer of, we just saw over the past 2 weeks, this person has clicked on these certain pages in the website. They've spent a certain amount of time, which means they're going to give them 2 points. They've also made an online inquiry on 2 properties. They've come to an inspection. Now they're at 5 out of 10 points. Trigger, give them a call.
That'd be amazing. So you're going to build this, Tristan? When are you rolling this out?
Guys, I'm just saying, this is where we're heading.
Yeah.
Okay. So reason why I'm building this group and this community is so everyone knows where we're heading and what can we do to be prepared and actually be one of the first to embrace this type of tech. And it's awesome that Rusty's investing in this right now because he believes it's really worthwhile. So my thing, like you could definitely invest in linking HubSpot to Agentbox. It just needs to be a return on investment on all that.
Linking to HubSpot.
Yep. So how many contacts do you have, Rusty, just so I understand?
We have 2 plus 5, which is like 7 keys of contacts. We don't have like plenty, obviously, in HubSpot. Because for the reason that you mentioned, like we need to pay for the contact. But the good thing is we can mark some contacts as non-marketing, which doesn't count. And the thing about the HubSpot, which I like, is that we can automate certain things, like we can send SMS, we can analyze, and it's like user friendly as well, like really user friendly. because like I know like some of the businesses I worked before, they switched from HubSpot to Salesforce, and then every time they need to make changes, they have to hire somebody like get this done for them. And I think why you moved, you know. Like,
no. So Rusty, how many contacts would you have in Agentbox? Just to get a feel.
Yeah, at least you roughly, what do you think? Yeah, how many we've got? No, I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah, we've got plenty. I think, yeah,
Plenty. Okay, that's
20.
50,000 at least.
Plenty. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Chris? When someone says that, I think Ben, how
20.
many contacts? I can't remember. How many contacts?
I think it's around 30,000.
30. Yep. Okay. Yeah, and you're on from memory, Ben. Rex.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, we're with Rex.
Yeah, I remember that. Good. We've got a good span, haven't we? We've got Rex, Agentbox, and Vault, the three main CRMs in the industry. And they're all very different, aren't they? They're very different. Bit of an update on Rex. Just so you know, Ben, so Rex is actually implementing very shortly a vendor portal, which would be very interesting.
Oh.
Okay. So that's coming up, and I'll share some information later on, if you like, on Rex. So all these platforms are implementing different things, okay, to remain relevant. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing that's coming up. And also Rex is implementing full integration of AI for listings and copy, emails and everything like that. So it's integration of ChatGPT. So all those things we went through with Josh, you'd be able to push a button and basically create the copy automatically.
Perfect. Yeah.
There you go. Sorry, guys, that are not on Rex, but just a quick update from. I'm learning every single week what's going on.
I think Vault has that.
So great, thanks, Chris. So yeah, do you see that in Vault, Will?
Yep, it's definitely there, and we use it just to tidy up.
Yep.
With when we're putting properties on the market, just run
Save
it through,
time.
have a bit of a look, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, good.
We use easy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. So, Will, do you know how many contacts are in your database, roughly?
About 6,500, something like that.
And there's only one agent, your wife?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's your wife's name? Sorry, I missed.
So there's just the two of us. Yeah.
What's your wife's name? Sorry, Will.
Sue.
Excellent. I remember. Was Sue the really colourful, lovely lady? She had an awesome dress on, and she's very lively. Yeah. So she's been in industry for a while, 6,500. So look, my belief, and my strategy is around really not about quantity, it's about quality, right? And that's what Chris and I help people through, really understanding, well, who are the people in the areas that we want to be famous in? Let's make sure we got a really rich database, accurate database, clean, that can just focus more effort on the right people, right? Because all the hundreds of databases that I've seen in the past 12 months, they're very fragmented. And that usually happens when agents very much rely on business sort of falling in their lap, in a way, referrals, that cause a lot of fragmentation. And they're so busy, on a certain, let's hit a ceiling. Would you agree, Ben? Have you seen that? So they get to 30 listings or so, and they're so freaking busy that they don't make time for prospecting, or they don't have the systems in the business in place like you have, Ben, which is pretty awesome what you've done. We'll share that with the group, whereby you've got consistent prospecting by up and coming agents, so new agents supporting the more experienced agents who really want to focus on listing and selling. So I think if you bring it back to Sue, what help does Sue have when it comes to engaging with the database?
We use ActivePipe.
Yep.
And that's about it, pretty much.
So that only does So I see Active Pipe as, if you're going to look at the gamut of marketing prospecting, email marketing gives you probably 15% of the opportunity that's in your database. Would you agree, guys? What about Rusty and Ben?
Right. Well, it comes down to the group of contacts that you want to kind of engage with. Like I would think Active Pipe is primarily targeted towards the buyer segment of your database.
Usually. Yeah.
Whereas Rita is probably better and more targeted towards, say, the owner segment of your database.
Yeah.
So there's different
phone calls and SMSs. Yeah. So what we want to have happen, and just to help give you some best advice, Will, so if you've got on a mission to clean up your database, it's really about, part of the process that Chris and I work through is we look at, okay, let's blend your data with, or your address data specifically. Okay, so addresses are really important with the value of general data, VG data, and just see, okay, how many of those people that you have with addresses are correct? So we want to build at least 1,000 to 2,000, property owners in the area that you're focusing on with mobile numbers and email. Okay, so we all know sort of where the gap is, all right? And then we say, okay, let's look at all the, you give us an area on a map. So you can just draw an area on a map and Chris and his team can interpret that and say, let's look at all the people, right? From the VG data, let's look at all the properties and names. And then we can go to ID for me off the back end of that and get all the correct details for those people that you're missing, or the details that are incorrect in your database. How's that sound? So that's what we want to do. But then engagement, remember that formula? We've got data plus systems plus engagement equals results, right? So what I just spoke about is the data. You mentioned Vault and Active Pipe, so they're your systems that you have to work with right now. We need to work on the engagement. And usually people like Sue are really busy because how many listings is she working on at the moment? Like,
I think we've got about 8 or 9 at the moment. That's about
good. That's pretty busy, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we need a resource to plug in to your business to make phone calls and book appointments.
So is that Rita?
Not necessarily. So you can choose whether you get Rita or not, but there are services like Messon Agency, right? So Messon Agency is like an outsourced company that makes phone calls on your behalf.
Oh yeah. We've tried a few of them. We haven't had much luck with most of those, unfortunately.
Yes, the reason why you may not have luck is because of the temperature of the database, the accuracy and the temperature. This hopefully everything I'm saying here resonates with all of you, because every database is at a certain temperature. You've got your hot contacts, which you've got quite a bit of activity with, but then the majority of the database are cold. Like they haven't heard from you from either ever or for a long time. They don't have that connection with you. So with my experience with Rita, so Rita is, it has few aspects to it, 3 main aspects. One aspect is generating call lists. Okay. The other aspect is the SMS automations. And the third is a call center. People making calls to people that are in the call list. Okay. If you go through the data cleansing process and you have your data really accurate around property owners in certain areas, then it has to go through a process of warming it up and building a bridge between Sue and those people.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously a section in your database which already know, like, and trust Sue.
Yeah.
So number one, we're going to keep them close on a nurture program. It takes time. So when you say you haven't got results, usually it's because the people they're calling either don't have much of a relationship, or you'd have to keep in touch with them over years to get any results. So what we want to do is put the odds in your favor. Everything I'm speaking about here is putting odds, all right, in your favor. So you're investing money, you got less time to get a return. Yeah, because the distance between your database and what's really going on in the world is much closer. It's super tight. Hope I'm describing it well.
Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, cool. So imagine out of your 6,000, right, there's probably 1,000 property owners, I'm guessing here. You could be amazing and have more than that. Usually it's 20%. Yeah, 1,500 maybe. Okay. So for Sue, to get really predictable, repeatable results, we need to protect the property owners, okay, in the area, but also especially the past clients. All the past clients should be in there accurately. That's really important, of course. And then all the past buyers and so forth. But then we need to insert correct details for everyone else in the area you're focusing. What suburb are you focusing on?
Oh, we don't focus on a single suburb. So there's probably 5 or 6 key areas around where we are. We're in the North Moreton Bay region. So there's about 5 or 6 different regions that we sort of sell in.
Okay. There must be hotspots. And that's where you want to, if you were to buy 5,000 contacts, for example, well, no, 3,000 contacts of ID for me, right? You'd have to, the only way to get a return on investment is to pick very specific areas which have high price, high turnover.
Yeah,
and
well,
also some history.
that's a bit difficult to do where we are.
Okay, all right.
It's one of those sort of demographics, you know. There are pockets that are good, and that's why we work on those pockets. And then there are whole areas within the area that we work. North Moreton Bay has got some really wonderful suburbs like Caboolture and Deception Bay.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, they're not places that we focus a lot of time on.
Okay.
But there are pockets outside of and around that, Alimba and Upper Caboolture and Beachmere and Bribie Island. Those sort of places are where we focus our attention.
Right, that's what I'm getting to, Will. Excellent. So what we want to do is, if we're going to get like 3,000 contacts, let's draw little circles, all right, around those areas which you think would give you the best return.
Okay.
That's what we do, all right?
Right.
And it's as easy as that.
Right.
Chris can then get those pockets where you believe you've had some great, it's all about stories, right? So you've got great stories to tell. Sue is awesome at stories, I assume. I could tell. And really connecting with these people because she's got so much to say, so much history there in the area. So basically, we want to get her in touch with those people in those areas. And when you just listed, so the power of having the data is that your just listed and just sold calls are reaching the right people. And instead of knowing only 10 people around a property that's just been listed or sold, you'll know 50 people, right? So that is in essence what I want from all of you. Okay. So that's the process.
Right.
What I'll do now, I'll go through a bit more detail, just the kind of things that what does it take to clean up the database. But I thought I'd just pick on yourself and Sue just to give you some perspective. Is that all right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool. Hey, Rusty, how many agents do you have?
We have close to I think 10 agents, or like a dozen agents. Yeah, at the moment.
How many are listing agents? How many are associates, up and coming agents?
Yeah, you in this way, yeah, probably 50.
So 6 listing agents, 6.
Roughly, yeah. It's a bit like dynamic thing, but yeah, it does change a little bit. But yeah, roughly.
Yeah. Because Ben, just to recap on your business as well, similar. So you've got, you had a bit more, didn't you?
Yeah, we've got seven agents, and we've got 5 in the sales associate team, which are our agents in training.
Yeah. So similar sort of size there, isn't it? That's pretty cool. And look, Rusty and Ben have, I mean, both could learn a lot off each other, you know, because sounds like you're both doing some really cool things, actually. And the structure that you both described to me is the winning formula that I'm seeing with other agencies. Okay, because really the listing agents, we want them as focused as much as possible, seeing people. And that means it's time and effort and energy. And so usually they don't have that time and structure to do the traditional prospecting of, 50 calls a day or whatever it is. Okay. So that model of having those associate agents doing the calls and working the database, updating the database, feeding in opportunities, like in Ben's language, they're code A's, right? So appraisals, so listing appointments. And then we've got, we want to make sure that all this is reflected in the system. And I think part of what I always, really encourage people to do is embrace their CRMs. And so every single listing appointment needs to be reflected in the CRM and reported on. Okay. Is that what you're seeing? Is that what you're doing with Agentbox, Rusty?
Yeah. That's what sales agents are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you got some really good metrics, right? So being numbers.
Yeah. There are areas of improvement, obviously, but yeah.
Cool. Well, I've got some numbers. That's right. What I might do actually is get Chris to give more color around the process of cleaning up the database. Yeah, I'll share my screen. So Chris, what I thought was I just shared just only the table which outlines the things we go through when it comes to cleaning the database. And I thought, you'd be really good at taking us through these items, and you guys can ask questions as to what these things mean. What do you reckon, Chris? Just a quick run through.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I guess there's a couple of things we find when we're working with agencies and their CRMs. They often come because they feel like there's gold buried in there that's leaking to competitors, or they're not finding it, or they're not connecting with it as well as they should. And it's often because the database can be a bit fat. It's got people in there that don't really mean much anymore. So we need to look at how do we trim it down and actually get it to a fit database of people that actually mean something to connect with and focus on. So there's kind of a couple of stages to it. One is with the existing data, how do we sort of go through with a bit of a lens and trim that down? And then the second element to it is then, well, how do we add more data which is valuable for us that we're missing at the moment to be able to get more appraisal opportunities and more listing presentations? So from an existing data point of view, to make it more trim and lean, it's looking at cutting out a lot of the noise and a lot of the clutter and where you don't trust what's in there. So things like duplicate contacts. Pretty common that we would find in a database at least 3% of the database is duplicate contacts. So going through and merging those, looking at contacts where we don't have contact information, we can't really work that contact to its full potential. Where we've got incomplete email addresses, for example, and that's an important one at the moment. There's platforms like Gmail, for example, that is a pretty commonly used domain that people have their emails hosted on, that have implemented some new standards around how they treat people sending emails to Gmail. So if you're an agency who is sending emails to a Gmail account that hasn't been activated for 5 years or has been closed down and is effectively bouncing, Gmail will detect that you're sending continual e-marketing to obsolete accounts, and they'll essentially put you on their blacklist as a sender. And that will affect the delivery rates of communication, because they sit there and go, this is a business that is not maintaining its data and that we suspect may be just spamming people. So being able to demonstrate that you're a healthy, active marketer is not just a nice to have, it's a need to have now, to ensure that you're getting that delivery of the message going through to people and you're not getting blocked. So one of the things we do is wash all the email addresses in your database to be able to make sure that they're all current and active, and then go through an archive and move to a note the ones that are a bounced email, so that you get a fitter, healthier database. And all of these changes you might sit there and go, well, how can you kind of do that? Like that all takes a bit of time. With the majority of the bigger CRM platforms, and certainly the ones that you guys are all on, we have access to their back-end API, where we can effectively go in and make updates and changes as needed based on custom scenarios or custom rules. So if it's search for contacts that are a buyer that we haven't touched for 2 years, and let's look at archiving those because we're not actively engaging with them, we can run that search and run that query to come up with that set of data based on certain rules or filters, and then action or update those records as needed. It might be applying a tag or a category to them. It might be changing the status of them. It might be doing any number of things. So in terms of that capacity to kind of have that functionality on being able to manipulate and update your data, having access to those back-end settings of those 3 CRMs that we've talked about today certainly gives us that capability of being able to do that.
Yeah, awesome. And the open for inspection, Chris, like a lot of, buyer requirements. A lot of buyer requirements are totally out of whack, which means your buyer matching is a challenge, right? So
you may have had someone come through 4 years ago, and that's created a reference point of a budget that the market's now moved, and therefore you're sending them stuff that there's not much priced at that lower level anymore. So being able to adjust those criteria based on the change in the median price of the particular area that they've inquired on, is one thing that we would do. So we can index and adjust all of those criteria to get them to current market conditions based on however long ago it was that they were at it.
The other thing I've seen in a lot of systems is that people making online inquiries on properties that they're really not interested in. But so there's 2 types of ways requirements are created. It's either open for inspection or an online inquiry. So if there is a open for inspection, then you probably treat that as more of a more of an accurate representation of what they're looking for. Would you agree, guys?
Yeah.
So we can adjust all the buyer requirements in all your platforms to match in a prioritized fashion. The open for inspection is one, and then if they do have online inquiries, you'll probably find there's maybe multiple buyer profiles, or in Rex terms, buyer profiles, or in Agentbox, it's the buyer requirements. I think in Vault it's also buyer requirements. Will, yeah, and in Vault I think similar to all the other platforms, it just creates layers of requirements as they make inquiries. So that usually needs a bit of a tidy up, and the reward of tidying that up is that we can do really good buyer matches, and people get automated communication with something that's more in alignment with what they're after.
I mean, pretty much what we want to do with that buyer segment, which is the biggest portion of your database, because if you think about having a listing, you might realistically have 40 people inquire and come through and look at it, and you might only end up with 1 buying it. So there's far more volume of contacts that are buyers. We essentially want to get to a bit where it's set and forget with them. We want to automate as much the kind of nurturing engagement with them as possible. So then it frees up our time, where as an agent, the highest and best use of time is on the phone or meeting with an owner, someone that's got something in the future that we're able to sell. So that's the objective of trying to get that contact data cleaned up, and a large portion of that being buyers is to then be able to free up that time to get focused on servicing your owners better.
That's good. We'll just spend a few words on this, but what I'm seeing in a lot of systems is there's huge amount of appraisals which are very old and out of date. So if what we usually apply is a rule that if an appraisal in the system is older than 12 months, then most likely if they had an opportunity now anyway, they'd have to create another appraisal. But in a lot of systems, especially Agentbox, you can't duplicate an appraisal on a property. So you'd have to go and close it off and then create a new one. So by removing all these old appraisals, then we're able to make the system run smoother, but also have a record. going back in time, a history of appraisals.
Not quite remove, more closing them, so not making them
Closing
active.
them, yes,
Yeah,
correct. Okay. So
and it also gives you a campaign to retarget them. It's been 12 months since the last update. The market's changed. We need to adjust things for current conditions.
Yeah.
Would it help you have a better idea of the equity in your property? Yeah.
That's a good campaign as well. Like you can apply that tomorrow. One thing I've done with a lot of clients is get them to physically print out a list of all appraisals that are older than 12 months on a report, and get the agents to go through and just go and call those people, take it everywhere they go, and any spare time they have to call those people and see if they can book another appraisal and reconnect with those people. Okay. So that's one really good exercise. In Vaults, I think, and maybe Rex as well, if you've done a data import from another system, then there's usually quite a few duplicate properties which can trip up the process of listing and appraisals. So one thing that's good to do is to handle that. Okay. And also making sure we've got the agents being related to the right properties based on prior transactions. So there's a little cleanup exercise, guys, around properties and appraisals. Cool. So I'll let Chris talk about this one. So washing. This is where it gets exciting, guys. I know I've spoken a bit of dry stuff so far, but this is the validating of addresses and also the build out. So these two sections are really really important.
I guess if you think about a database, you're generally going to get on average, 5% of that data would transact in an area per annum, which if you think about, if you've been going for 10 years, that's sort of 50% of the database that then has kind of evolved and changed. So over a period of time, the data gets more and more outdated if you're not able to keep on track of who owns what. And when we chat to agents, one of the kind of obstacles that they face is they may not make enough calls because they feel they have that embarrassment of ringing someone and their data's not up to date and they don't own the property anymore. And it makes them look a bit silly because they don't know their own market. So one of the solutions that we offer is to do a bulk wash of being able to validate whether the contact that you have linked to a property is still the owner of that property. So we essentially wash that against the government data to be able to see whether it's the same contact. If it's not the same contact and we find they're now a past owner, we would go through and then update them as the past owner of that property, and therefore identify that as a property that doesn't have the current owner attached. If we're able to confirm that they are still the owner of that property, we would then tag them as a validated current owner. So you know that it's been washed, you know that they've been checked and confirmed. And with those owners that we confirm still own the property, we then say which of those have gaps in their contact information that we could look to fill. Are they missing a mobile? Are they missing an email? So that we can identify those contacts that we're not able to fully engage with at the moment because we're wasting their contact information. And one of the things here, so this is about ringing the wrong prospects or opportunities and wasting time doing that. And then the other thing, which is what it starts to lead into, is trying to get contact information for people. And one of the things that was really surprising to me is, I read a study that was done by a global consulting group called Accenture, and they talked about across sales, and this is not just limited to the real estate industry, but across the sales function, across multiple industries, salespeople spend 2/3 of their time actually on the admin associated with selling. And if you think about that from a real estate agency point of view, that's stuff like, looking up, have I got the right owner? Where's their mobile phone number that's not in the system? Where's their email address that's not in the system? And so if you think about an agent working, for example, maybe 6 days a week, that's 4 days out of those 6 days, like a Monday to Thursday, that they're actually spending just getting ready to be able to ring and talk to people. And so they're only really productively using that highest and best use of their time, maybe for a couple of days a week. And that study talked about if you could reduce that non-productive or sales admin time from 2/3 just down to half, they've seen a 40% increase in revenue. And so what this is about doing is getting the data current, getting it trusted, having our agents feel like it's a source of opportunity for them again, rather than it just being, a digital Teledex of names and numbers, to actually give them the opportunities to pursue. And then we generally would find in a particular area that you operate in, an agency might only have up to, say, between 15 to 20% of all of the properties in that particular area in their database, which means they're only ever going to be able to have, even if they had 100% market share of all of the owners and all of the properties in their database, that they were able to sell them all. Well, that's only 100% of maybe 15% of the market. So that's where this last layer, in terms of the build out, what it does is it says, where are all the properties that are in an area we want to target that right now we don't have in our database? And how can we go about getting those owners and those properties in our database? And so the way that works is we would then get a list of all of those owners that we've washed up in the section before, where you've got missing contact information, plus all those owners that you've never had in your database that are within your target area. And we'd work with ID for Me, and they do a bulk wash of all of those owners and properties, and then give us back a file with all of the contact information for those relevant owners. And then what we do is we create those contacts with all their contact information. We create the property record with the beds, baths, cars, land size, last sold date, last sold price. So you've got a fully built out spec'd property record, not just an address. And we then link them together as the owner in your database. And we would tag those new owners as a validated current owner, not contacted. So you can differentiate between those new owners versus the ones you might have already had in your database. So you can run different types of outbound call campaigns to them. So instead of having to spend months door knocking, doing title searches, kind of in a very granular way, manually building that outcome, you're able to do that at scale. And did you want me to talk about a case study of how that has worked?
Before we do that, just wanted to bring that back to, well, if you have that data, then this is where the rubber hits the road, right? So there's less resistance between you and the right person. Okay. So essentially, just play out some scenarios. I'm always a great fan of having a very smooth running, just listed, just sold, and also if you do auctions, an auction process, right? So inviting the neighbors to the auction, inviting to the auction for inspections, those sorts of things. Okay. The more people you can touch with that activity, the more relevancy and the more helpful you can be to your community. Okay. Without being pushy or anything like that. Okay. Which is what we want to avoid. We want to be helpful and not pushy. So the other thing is, if we're generating appraisals, right? So we've got a whole suite of appraisals in the system and we're talking to qualified buyers, we've all got listings where there's only one buyer, but there's probably two others, right? Which are really interested. So what if you could have your really tight group of qualified buyers who are cashed up or get their finance sorted, ready to go. They missed out on a listing and they're quite upset. If you could go to all your appraisals and refine the search easily by 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,000 square meters, if you could just filter your appraisals in the past 12 months based on that, do you think that'll make a difference? You might be able to bring up like 6 that match. And that's an amazing conversation. You could say, hey, I've got this buyer, George, who just missed out on a house similar to yours, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,000 square meters. They'd really appreciate your type of property. They're looking at spending about 1.3 million, right? Which is probably around the price I can see in the last appraisal. We said about 1.1 million, right? Would it be okay? Would you be interested in considering an offer? And would you be open to showing a couple of groups through your house to get a gauge of the market? See that at work? That could be a good process.
Absolutely.
Fueled by data. Okay. Anyway, so Chris, so that in that school group, I did post a video of, I think, Stacy, right? A quick little video. Chris, you can just have a quick little summary of that experience, because it's a really powerful story, which you can just run through.
I think it just shows how quickly you can build momentum. You know, you think about a brand new office opening in a new area with no database. The traditional approach would be they'd have to spend 6 to 12 months out door knocking, doing the community events, all those sorts of things to gradually build up to a critical mass of people that they know own property, so they could then start kind of connecting and engaging with them. You know, for that office, we were able to build out 3,000 owners for them in about 3 weeks. So they could essentially then, hit the ground running, and they were able to pick up, I think, 18 listings in the first 4 months. And her approach was not about to try to get the outcome in that one call. It was more about to open a conversation to find out where they're at on their property journey and what was the next goal for them in their property plan. And to identify, is that them upsizing? Is it downsizing? Is it side sizing in terms of, moving from something, looking for a renovation opportunity or adding value to their own property? And then based on understanding what that next move looked like for them, coming in to say, well, he's having a more accurate idea of the equity in that property going to be able to help you with those plans. So if you've seen that video, I think she had a disadvantage in that she'd never been in real estate before. So she's gone from nothing and is on track to write 500K GCI in her first year, which is great. But she also had an advantage because she had the ability to ask questions that I think for owners conveyed that she was interested in their medium to longer term plans. And wasn't just about having that one transaction, but was trying to connect with them and help them and strategize with them and kind of be more that property advisor to them. And I think that's what led to her having a lot more opportunities to do appraisals. And then the byproduct of some of that was it created some sales.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Chris, how you mentioned that you made this, how did you generate this amount of, is it through can you talk about this? I see the result was great, but how you did it, it would be interesting to know.
I think from that point of view, ID for me probably have the largest consumer contact, one of the largest consumer contact databases in Australia. They've got access to over 600 different licensed data sources. I think there's something like 7,500 agents in Australia that are using them at the moment. But it takes time. And, you're kind of going through and checking and you see a whole heap of names and you don't really know which is which.
Can you put the suburb, just for example, suburb that you're interested in and just get all the people there from the database? Yeah, that's what you can do, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we can do it at a postcode level. We can do it at a suburb within a postcode. We even had one lady up around Maroochydore that we helped. She wanted all the waterfront properties around the canals. So she gave us a hand-drawn, marked up Google map of all of those sort of streets and waterfront locations that she wanted us to target. And then we've got the ability on maps to draw shapes and be able to geo search, not just put in a postcode or put in a suburb value. We can actually do it based on the geographic coordinates to just pull out those particular ones, which is why where Tristan was going before with Will a bit. If you're operating over a number of areas, but there's certain hot pockets within those areas, you can just zone in and draw the circles over them and then pull all of them together to create your targeted, gold list. And normally when we do that, we would have a review session with you to actually say, okay, here's the number of records that we've got. Because if you haven't done that before, it's sort of a bit like, you're shooting in the dark a bit. For some people, it may not be enough, and so they want to add a bit more. They go, okay, we'll add this area or add this street list or whatever. But some people, it might be too much, and they might turn around and go, we'll take all the apartments out of this particular area, or take all the one-bedders out of this particular area. So you can actually kind of filter it and refine it down. So you've just got those sort of nuggets left that are then worth spending the money on to go and get the contact details for.
Yeah, thank you.
So, you know. Yeah, thanks, Rusty. Sorry.
And what kind of course we are talking about with this exercise? We do have a list of kind of contacts we target, like, but I'm just wondering for the new suburbs might be interested in getting. Is it something?
Yeah, so the build out work is normally based for us. So our role is to get all the ownership details, to get all the property details, to then work with you to refine that list into a target data set that you then want to have ID for me to wash. We give them the file, we coordinate with them. They then give the file back to us, and then we create the contacts, the properties, import all that data and link it for you. So our role is to extract, to format it, and then to import it and coordinate that process for you. So for us to do that is 3,000 plus GST, and that's up to 10,000 records within that quota. ID for me then have their own way that they price their searching. So theirs is a success-based outcome. If they search for an owner for you and they don't find it in their database, then there's nothing attached for them to do that for you. That there's no fee for that. If they do get a match, it's 66 cents a record for them per matched owner that they get. So, for example, and their match rates in Queensland, they probably get about 70%.
That's pretty good.
So if you were to give them 5,000 records, you'd probably get matched maybe 3,500. And then you're probably talking at 66 cents for the 3,500. I don't know, whatever that is, 2,000 something. I've got the calculator going in front of me, but
$2,000. Yep.
Thank you. Sounds good.
So certainly the payback is fun listing in most cases. Like,
if that, no. Chris, just to clarify, I mean, to do it properly, you've got to do the wash, which is $2,000, and you got $3,000. So it's really for yourself, Chris, be $5,000 for you, and then it'd be $2,000 for least, for 3,000 contacts. But it depends on the size of the business. You do at least 5,000 contacts, which is about $3,000 with ID for me, roughly. So you can do a lot within a $10,000 budget, basically. Yeah, well within.
And these are giving you the most valuable pieces of data that you can have in a database. A current owner with all their contact information.
You can even go date of birth. You can actually load into Agentbox. You get all that from ID for me. You put this sounds a bit funny, doesn't it? But you could put in date of birth or something like that. Even the year, you probably don't need the exact date of birth. But
you could tag them, or you could tag them as a generation. So we're working with one guy at the moment that wants all the baby boomers tagged.
Yep.
So that he then knows to ring their landline or send them a letter or approach them in a particular way.
Yep.
And the date the property bought is something as well there. Like, for example, when they bought the property, is this information available?
Last sold date and last sold.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
That could be on every single property card you have, Rusty.
Yeah. I'm just saying that like we have all the consolidated information in one place. Then we don't need.
So if you went and looked at your property record, your prospect property in Agentbox, you'd see the beds, baths, cars, land size, and then on the last sold date, last sold price fields on that record, you'd see that information in there.
Yeah.
But for the completely new contacts that we don't know, we don't have information.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd actually see it on the summary page of that property record. It shows you the address and then the symbols, and then in the top right corner it has the last sold date and price, just at a quick glance.
Yep.
And you can filter by that too.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you can sort of see it's a different game, isn't it? If you've got all that data, then everything runs so much smoother, right? It's a matter of, well, once you have the data, then what strategies do we have to actually get the return on investment? And that's where we want to know how we're going to communicate to these people on all the channels, which is social media, email, SMS, and phone. And for some, it's actually mail out. I'm not allergic to the mail outs, the old snail mail, definitely, because for the older generation, that can really cut through. So if you've got even the year that someone's born, you can actually filter your database of everyone that is older than 50 years old, for example, and maybe they're the people that we want to send letters out to, physical letters, self-addressed. So we get most likely
Will's shaking his head. Will's shaking his head, but I think
Too
it's
young,
in ferocious
50,
agreement.
no, you need to
Too
be
young?
You need to be over 60, 65.
Actually, I do agree with you, because I'm almost 50 myself.
Oh, you poor old bugger.
I know, I'm feeling it. Yeah, so I think, yeah, no, you're right. So anyone over 60, for example, would really appreciate, a bit of extra attention snail mail. But if you've got 30-year-olds that own a property, then SMS would be probably a really good way of communicating with those people on social
They
media.
don't even check their mailbox anymore, Tristan.
No,
No,
they probably wouldn't, would they? So hopefully this is really helpful, where we've gone through some of these things, and we can certainly explore. And this recording I'm going to put in the group, right, for people to take a look at. But there's some really good things that we've shared here, and really appreciate the feedback. So, Will, anything that is on your mind? But now we've gone through quite a number of things. What's on your mind, Will?
Well, I'm going to have a conversation with my wife tonight, and we'll probably get back to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Moving forward with a few things,
Yeah. And are you part of Agents Agency or anything like that?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so it's such a good group. So yeah, that's something. Yeah, at least you got some good back end support there with that group. Yeah, that's awesome.
An outcome for Will would look like, I made a note that he wrote dead wood at the start of the call. It'd be basically cutting out that dead wood and replacing it with live, vibrant current owners, where you can connect with more people in those hot pockets that you want to target.
Yeah, that's good. It's doing it any other way, it's too big a task.
It is, mate.
It doesn't happen, right? It's that simple. You look at it and go, well, it's just too onerous. I knew about ID for me, but most of the records of everything else that you use in Queensland, they're just not very good. There's there's a couple of other different sources that work really well in Melbourne, and they work really well in Sydney, but they just don't work here in Brisbane. So, having this conversation, it makes it more appealing and much more straightforward. You can get results a lot more quickly without having to physically do all the work yourself.
Correct.
That's boring stuff,
I know, isn't it, Bill?
It would have fallen on me to do all that, right? So it's not stimulating.
Well, I often joke, I'm like, are you gonna code the investment in this project under data and technology, or is it going under mental health and well-being?
Yeah, so I'll have a conversation with my wife, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I hope this is inspiring.
I found it very interesting.
If you want to talk to the guys at ID for me, just let me know. I'll put you in touch with the right people if you like. Yeah, if you haven't spoken to them before. Yeah. And Rusty, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, this all ideas. Thanks very much for sharing, and we'll speak to the team, obviously, to see if they like individually what kind of tools they are using, and whether they would be interested in getting cleaning data and everything. And then we'll talk to you then, and obviously about integration.
Yeah.
So
definitely worthwhile talking about that to continue our discussion. Who's the lady that's joining you, Rusty?
My colleague is Ellis.
Ellis.
We are all both in marketing team. So
oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Really good.
Thanks for
thanks for joining, Ellis. I really appreciate it, and hope this is all marketing, right? This underpins amazing marketing, which is more hyper sensitive to how are we going to hyper relevant is what we want, right? That's the future of marketing, is
I think it's, sorry to cut you off, it's putting the odds in your favor to a certain extent as well, isn't it? And it's not the old spray and pray approach.
Yeah.
It's a lot more sort of targeted, sort of informed and strategic, you know, where you're kind of targeting your message. I think that's there's so many more insights and more clear audiences of people you can talk to rather than just having to send them everything. And people are too busy to cut through that these days. They don't look at it, go straight to their junk mail. If you're just sending them all your stock list and all that stuff, it means you don't know what they're interested in, you know nothing about them, just like everyone else that does it.
Yep, that's right. Cool. Well, that's I think that's probably enough for now. I think we covered quite a lot of things, and really appreciate you guys jumping on and having a good chat about this.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you
very
much.
much.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
No
Nice.
worries.
Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.